back at the bench on this lovely October day. It's officially Halloween season, I think. All right, so let me get my penguins out of the way. This is today's blade. I've been working with this a lot. Let me go through the blade before I get into the stone. This blade is like a beater. You know, I got it cheap. It's been abused. Somebody relieved the heel in here before I got it and did like a really like whack job, right? Probably because the stabilizer was up into the edge and they just wanted to do a quick like little fix and what have you. The front of the Tang has 77 and some other insignia here. I don't know what that means. And then on the back it says best quality, and it's like, you know, best quality razor. You know when somebody says something like that, you gotta like raise an eyebrow. And if you look, the stabilizer in here, right? There's like a piece missing. So when this was made, whoever did the original grind hit that. They sold it anyway. So you know this wasn't like some top flight, you know, razor choice. Probably sold in a hardware store or what do you call it? A pharmacy or something. But I kind of liked it. The blade wasn't too tore up. It looks like there was some etch on it at one time. I'm not really sure, but it looks that way. And it's been sanded out. The scales are, you know, cheap black plastic, whatever. But for the price, I figured, you know, I'll check it out. So I put on a stone, I did some honing, and took a while to get to good steel. I got to good steel, got an edge, honed it, and I've been like honing. This has so many hones on it, probably been honed like 50 times, maybe more. It's like a test blade. I've done pastes, I've done naturals, I've done synths and naturals. I've gone around and around and around with combinations, just like, you know, because that's what I do. I hone like every day, and I need blades like this to work on because I really don't want to take, like, this is like a go to blade for me. I don't want to take this one and put it on the stones all the time. That's a Wade and Busher 88 FBU celebrated, blah, blah, blah. Really good blade. Love to shave with it. But I tell you what, I love shaving with this too because it shaves. It does not take the same edge. It does not have the same grind. It does not feel the same in my hand. It is not my first choice, but it's shaving and I'm taking hair off my face. I got to remember that. There's an awful lot of people who seem to obviate the simple fact, like what we're doing is we're taking hair off our face. That's it. If you're turning this into a personality thing or a lifestyle thing, or you're using it to feed your self-centered obsessions and whatever, yeah, I don't know where you're going with that. There's like some insanity on the internet right now in the world of honing with, you know, people giving advice that wasn't asked for, and then people are terminally offended over it, and then you have pompous, arrogant bullshit behind it, and then you got another guy has come in and he's using this dysfunction to feed his own like sorry mental state, and it's like, all I want to do at the end of my day is like shave and feel good. That's it. Like the rest of this shit, I don't fucking need drama in my life like that to feel good or to have something to do. I have so much to do. I can't get it all done. So anyway, back to honing. Like this is my thing. You know, I come home and I put a blade on a stone and, you know, I shave and it's all good. And once in a while I don't shave. Like Friday nights, I might not shave. I usually do, but I might not, you know, or I might skip here and there. But for the most part, I shave every day, and I like a good, clean shaven face. You know, for me, that's my thing. So I keep blades like this around. I have a bunch, several of them, actually, in various states of repair or disrepair. I don't put a lot of effort into them. If I decide I really like something like this, like, say, for example, this one, if I was really in love with it, after a while, I'm not there right now, I would do a better grind in here. And I'm going to drop some photos in so you can see, okay, the story here. But basically, okay, so this is your stabilizer. People talk about relaxing the heel. Okay, we just shifted into like tutorial 101, heel grinding, heel relaxing. Sorry, I didn't give you any warning. So anyway, this is your stabilizer, right? The steel up here in front of the stabilizer, okay, is thicker, okay, than the steel at the edge. So if you're honing, okay, it's a slurry stone, but I'm using this. If you're honing, right, and you have the stabilizer up on the stone, okay, a portion of what you want to sharpen here isn't going to be on the stone. In fact, your entire edge is going to be like on an angle. That's exaggerated. We're talking like, little proverbial curly hairs worth of space here. But see, this is the thing. People are like, I can't get a bevel, I can't get a bevel, I can't get a bevel. And I always say the same thing. Post a picture of the blade. 90% of the time, it's a blade where the edge is riding into the stabilizer. So what we do is we grind this down, which is what the previous owner did, but he did like literally like jack work. He just like went at it and took it down. I polished up over a little bit because it was rough, but it really needs more finesse. The angle here, the curve needs to be adjusted. However, and you're going to see this photograph, I did a picture with an arrow and the letter B. I don't know why I use the letter B as an indicator, but the letter B points to the point where the edge transitions from the actual shaving edge grind, the hollow, into this area where the stabilizer is. Now, this is a hollow too, but it's not as hollow as this. Obviously, it's a stabilizer. It's thicker. It's meant to make it stiffer. I'll be honest, I hate them. They're a pain in the ass. When you don't have them, life can be a lot easier. When you do have them, the blades are stiffer. That might be good, but this honing business on a worn blade is like, requires a lot of work. So if you bought a blade to learn how to hone on and it has a stabilizer, do yourself a big favor and work on this first. Don't spend time polishing and sanding and rubbing and buffing first. Do that later. If you don't get this right, you're gonna have a headache. Trust me. You can work around it, but why leave something that you can work around when you can just get rid of it? Because it doesn't need to be there. And in fact, it's in the way, and all it does is create problems. You wind up with what's called a heel hook. You don't want to deal with that. So anyway, you're going to see the picture. I did an end shot so you can see the thickness of the steel and how it transitions in there. I can't show it to you on video. It's just, you can kind of see like the highlight when I roll it, but I did a close-up. Is that the stone? Yeah, I know. I usually hone on J-Nats, but I have an Escher, and I don't really use it that much. Yes, this is an Escher slurry stone. It was cut from a broken stone, right? Still has the end label. Stone was shattered. I cut it back. I sealed it up. Stone here, it's sealed. I don't recommend doing this. You can destroy labels, but this one is sealed. All right, the edges are not, so when I hold it, I'm feeling stone. I like that. This is, there is no color on an end label, right? So, people will say this is a yellow-green, and I agree, it is yellow-green, but without an end label, I don't know. If you have a stone that's a Thuringian and it's not an Escher, using Escher's colors is really not correct. Do whatever you want. There are no rules. There are no hone police, but the fact is that the colors are Escher marketing, and if it's not an Escher stone, then whatever. So this is a dark blue, right? Think so, dark blue. And this is a yellow green, so there is a color mismatch. Does this matter? Not to me, it doesn't. I think this is a good setup. This works for me. I've had this like for years and years, and it works great. I am not sold on yellow greens being the bomb. I actually have gotten better edges from the darker stones, particularly blue-green. That's in a typical sense. This particular yellow-green is a winner, okay? So what do? You wet it, and then you hone on it. Now, do you need a slurry stone with an Escher? No, you don't. Why do I have one? Because I can. Right? So I can actually just come in here, right? Blade on stone. Sometimes people ask me, how come your heel is up off the stone? I do a lot of editing. I don't show you everything. So sometimes I'm working just up on the front. I have a blade. Can you see the smile on this? There's a smile. Okay, so if I have a blade with a smile, I'm inclined to sometimes come up on the blade like this. And that might be all you see. Okay, trust me when I tell you, when I'm done honing, my blade edge is even stem to stern. Okay. Yeah, people watch my videos and they have a need to make idiot comments. And some of them are from, I don't know, people who consider themselves to be competitors or antagonists or some bullshit. I don't know. It's honing, man. If you don't like the way I hone, yeah, go fuck yourself. Yeah, I said it. All right, so anyway, that's your basic process. Okay, now I'm going to put this down for a sec. I'm going to get a piece of paper towel. I use Bounty, by the way. A long time ago, eyeglass dude, doctor, ophthalmologist, whatever you call it, told me to use Bounty on glass because it has less scratchy particles. I don't know if that's true, but it's what he said. And since then, I've been doing that on things that matter and haven't had any problems. So, whatever. So I made a slurry. See how light it is? See how swishy it is? Right? That's all you need. Don't make like yogurt. Don't make like heavy cream. Don't make like Elmer's paste. Right? Just a swipe. What's going on here mostly, and this is my opinion now, okay, is that this stone, being very much like this stone, you're just refreshing the surface. You're just bringing up the nap. You're refreshing the particles. The stone that's facing the blade is now fresh and ready to go. Before that, it's been sort of burnished down. Burnish is the wrong word. Okay, I hate the internet, man. These words get in my head. It's not burnishing. Okay, you're just glazing. Okay, you're just polishing, and then you wind up with an uneven surface. People talk about burnished arcs. You're not burnishing an arc. You're polishing the arc. And if you're honing on a polished arc, you're kind of wasting your time. You're misusing the stone. Drop the surface down to something that has a hint of matte to it. I usually use, if I'm going to use sandpaper, I'll use like 600 on an arc, right? I might use 1K on an Escher. Depends on the stone and how hard it is to just make the stone not reflective, because reflectivity means there's polish, and if it's not perfectly polished, you run into spots of the stone that hone differently. And honestly, you're just defeating the abrasive nature of the stone. Now, maybe you think that's a good idea, okay? I've honed a lot of blades on a lot of... Do you know how many Eschers I've owned? Oh, please. It's stupid, okay? This is the only one I have now because, like, you only need one. You don't need backup. It's a rock. What's going to happen, okay? And what I found over the years in the myriad blades and stone combinations is that a lot of what a lot of people tend to make like a pet peeve or a thing that they gotta like pimp is like they're doing that for attention. Okay, it doesn't really pan out in the long run. I do like literally testing, not I honed and I shaved and call it a test. That's not a test. Okay, back to back, side to side, multiple raises, stones, switching, changing up, going down the line. And after a huge sample size, I routinely find that glazed stones of any type really aren't doing anybody a favor. And that holds true for synths too. If you have a synth, you're better off having a fresh surface. And if you look at Japanese stones and the use of Tomo Nagura and Nagura in general, that's what that speaks to. Anyway, back on topic. Here we have this Escher. We have a little bit of slurry. Here, let me do something here. Sometimes stones like to move around. This is one of those times. So I do this, mash the ends down, voila. All right. So somebody, it's not somebody, but I just saw a question recently. I was like, how many passes do I do on an XYZ stone after an XYZ stone? Stop counting. Stop thinking in terms of K grit and You can't control honing with math. You don't get better at honing by applying mathematical principles. You really don't. You want to get better at honing? Learn how to feel. Learn feedback. Every blade is different. This particular blade doesn't need much work on the stone. All I'm really doing is a little touch up here. I'm using a tiny bit of pressure. A lot of stones work a little better with a little pressure, but you have to be even and you have to be cautious and you have to make sure you're not doing crazy stuff. Like, don't put the blade on the stone and push so hard that you flex the grind. But you do want to get in there and let the stone work. So what do I mean by feedback? Well, there is visual, there is audible, there is tactile. I cannot teach you tactile. You got to feel it in your head. Audible, the sound of the blade on the stone. If you listen closely, it changes as you progress. The microphone is not going to pick this up well enough for me to demonstrate that, and it would take a long time, and I have to do a lot of editing and pulling samples out and going side by side. I just can't do it. If you were here in person, it would actually be easier, although not easy. Okay, but trust me, pay attention, shut the door, turn the radio off, tell the kids to go away. Tell your wife you need alone time, you need to focus, you need to concentrate, because I have found honing is mostly, well, not mostly, but a lot of it is about concentration. I think people who have a lot of troubles also have a lot of distractions. Okay? So you have the audible part. The visible part, you can look at your undercut as you get the blade more and more refined. The apex of the edge gets closer and closer to the surface of the stone, right? There's always going to be a tiny hair of convexity for the most part. It's almost impossible to completely avoid it. It's just the way steel works when it's abraded. But the more accurate that angle is without curvature, or the lesser amount of curvature, okay, the better, I think, and the closer your actual apex gets to the stone. So, here, let me explain. You ready for a post-it? Because we're going to do a post-it. All right, so if I take this post-it here, if this is the stone surface, right, it's an angle, and you have a blade that's coming in, but the tip is a little tiny bit curved. See how the apex is up? Okay, if you make the blade more of a perfect angle, see how it's closer to the stone? Okay, now typically this angle would not be so great, but for the sake of illustrating, what we're really looking at is, this is the surface of the stone, right? And you have that. This is kind of like what you're looking for, right? So you want to eliminate as much convexity as possible. Well, I do. Some people argue about convexity being a good thing, and in the case of a cauticule, it's a natural thing because they inherently add convexity, yet those edges shave okay. You will find me shaving on off of different stones most of the time. I like a cauticule edge, but my go-to is a J-nat, and sometimes I use an Escher. Once in a while, I'll do like a synth edge. Once in a while, a paste edge. My thing is usually a more accurate bevel. So I'm editing this in after the fact, so if the color and the lighting and everything else is off, that's why. I realized when I was editing the main part that I had already filmed for this video that I didn't really explain too much about the bevel, the undercut, and what's going on. I alluded to it, but I think I could have been clearer. So I'm going to try and be clearer now. So basically, when you remove some of that curvature in your bevel and you're making the angle more of a perfect straight line, you're allowing the apex of your edge to get closer to the stone, which in turn allows you to pick up more of your slurry on the bevel and edge. So if you can imagine, if you had a very convex bevel in a very extreme sense, like the edge would be way up, okay? And then you wouldn't be getting the slurry up on the blade, it would be going under. And like that's what happens exactly. It goes under, okay? See how I pick up a little there? But most of it's over there, or it's going up on top of my blade. Some people will say undercut doesn't mean anything. Well, it does if you know how to use it, because if I go really fast, then you have one type of undercut. If you go really slow, you have a different type of undercut. So what I'm trying to say is you have to learn how to use this feedback to your advantage. So a lot has to do with your pressure and your speed, the type of stone, the density of your slurry, okay? To some degree, the type of steel, the edge, whether or not you have a curve or not. There's a lot of factors. It's not just add water and stir. Guys often look for, guys in the honing forums, they're looking for a magic bullet. They're looking for like a quick answer and a quick hit that's going to solve everything. And I'm sorry, that's just not part of the story. People who claim to be prodigies rarely ever are. I don't think a prodigy ever says they're a prodigy. That's like saying you're humble. If you're saying you're humble, you're not humble. All right. Sometimes people get lucky, beginner's luck and all of that, or stars align for them, great. And maybe there is a prodigy or two or three out there. I don't know. But I've seen a lot of people come in and be like, oh, I got this. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, why can't I get an edge? Well, because you weren't paying attention. And you're not using all the tells, and it takes time. It takes practice. It takes education. It takes wisdom. It takes experience. It doesn't just come overnight. It's a skill. It's a craft. It's not like, making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Bread, peanut butter, jelly, / eat. It's not like that. There's a lot of variables here, I guess there's variables in making a sandwich. What type of bread, what type of jelly, what type of peanut butter. Well, you know what I mean, right? So anyway, the undercut thing, right? When you learn what your undercut does, when you're working things a certain way, and then you see your undercut increase. I usually shoot for something I call a violent undercut. And I will show that to you someday. I will figure out how to film that, because you need to see it in a progression. You need to see how it develops, and you need to see exactly what I'm talking about. And it's going to be a little tricky camera-wise. And I honestly, I don't know that I can pull it off. Okay? But if I can, I will. So, you want to talk about feedback and like, what does it mean? And all right, so it's literally the stone feeding back to you. Okay, so imagine you have an edge that needs to be polished and an edge that's more polished. What is that going to feel like? Well, if you have, like, say, for example, a stone, okay, that is consistent. So this is a consistent piece of steel, okay? It's homogeneous, right? Listen. Hear that? Hear that? Same amount of pressure. That's kind of the process or the idea behind feedback. You're looking for the smoothness. You're looking for the reduction in the abrasive sound, okay? With a stone that's very fine, you're going to wind up with a much less dramatic situation than that, because, let's face it, this is like 180 or something like that. That's pretty coarse, but I picked that to give you an idea. So anyway, back to this. So what I'm doing here is basically just tuning this up. I showed you a little bit about the heel. I told you I put some photos in there. Hopefully that makes sense. If you need to ask more questions, please do. Use the comments, okay? People who ask like technical questions and are really trying to learn, you always get answered, okay? That's why the channel is here. If I don't know, I don't know. So what happens is, as I'm going along, I'm gauging my pressure. So I start off in a certain place and I achieve a certain tactile feel on the stone to where the abrasive quality is diminished. And then I lower my pressure. And if I continue, and I will, as I go, I continually lower my pressure, gauged against the feeling on the stone, the sound of the feedback, the way my undercut looks. You'll notice I use a lot of heel forward motions. Somebody recently was giving advice to somebody on honing because they were hitting way up here. Sometimes the spine is very fat up here. Okay, so when you're honing straight on, it's difficult to deal with that fat thing because it's very much like the problems you get with the stabilizer. In those cases, put the blade like this. So the spine showing to the stone is up here where it's inevitably going to be like more in line with your bevel angle. Okay, that's why you find a lot of people use heel leading, right? A lot of people on the internet have a lot to say. I think they get on the internet, because they have nothing else to do, and they spend all day giving advice and telling people what to do, even when they didn't ask for it. And a lot of it is wrong. A lot of it is misinformation. A lot of it is stuff taken out of context that doesn't really apply in the moment. A lot of it is just hot air being thrown around for the sake of somebody like indulging their ego, which, whatever. Doesn't affect my life. But I remember what it was like when I started. I remember asking questions, and I'm the kind of guy I ask pointed questions. So I showed up in the forum and I asked pointed questions, and literally nobody was answering me. I remember asking questions about Nagura directed at the so-called experts, and it turns out like none of them had even seen a coma. They heard about it. So here are all these proclaimed experts, and none of them had even touched the stone I'm asking about. That particular forum I don't go to anymore. There's been a whole lot of drama over there. There's been Lynn used to run the place, and then there was a coup, and then there was a court case, and then there was ignoring the directions from the court, and it's just fucking ridiculous. And people are like, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics. It's not politics. Somebody comes to my house and breaks in my front door and I stab them in the neck with a chef knife. That's not politics. That's get the fuck out of my house. After honing many, many blades on Esches over a very long period of time, I can tell you, basically, I'm not going to get any more out of the stone of this edge. If I had a better blade, I might get some more. But I don't. I have an adequate blade. And this blade shaves. It shaves. I got a really good shave the other night from this puppy. And for the price of admission, man, I'd buy 100 of these before I bought a single gold dollar. Honestly. Anyway, so let me just don't do this. Okay, I just want to flip the stone over. You do this, you get like shit on your stone. I'm going to wash it off later. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to put the penguins back because they like to say goodbye. Anyway, listen, Halloween season. Hope you spend time with your families, your kids. You get out, do some trick-or-treating, whatever it is you're into, whatever's clever. Anyway, listen, this is about honing, sharpening razors. I'm literally only doing one thing. I'm rubbing steel on a rock. That's it. Following that, this is about shaving. I'm taking hair off my face. That's it. Nothing else. All right? When I keep that in mind, my life gets better. I suggest you guys do the same. I also suggest staying the fuck away from those idiots who got nothing better to do than run around the internet stirring up shit. They're just doing it for themselves. They're not doing it for you. Listen, anyway, until next time, take care. Talk to you soon. Happy honing.